All right, kids, we're going to try this again with the HDR turned off. I did this whole video and it looked super washed out. But where we last left off, we made the shop drawers and I mentioned 3D printing some organizers. So that's what we're going to talk about here. This is the organizational setup I've designed for the second drawer in the shelf. So basically what I did was open TinkerCAD, which is a free browser-based CAD software. Got a pretty easy learning curve, at least as far as I'm concerned. And for simple stuff, it's easy. Way easier, I think, than trying to use Fusion or Blender, neither of which I've been able to master. A lot of these were files I downloaded from Thingiverse or elsewhere. But the first thing I did was go down to the settings in the bottom right corner and change the dimensions of the project to the interior dimensions of my drawer that I'm designing. I've got everything set in inches there. And then I just kind of laid these out in a way that it's going to fit snugly inside of the drawer. Now these hex bit holder plates, I downloaded that file, and I downloaded these organizers too. I did adjust the size of this one to fit tighter. These little boxes and this one up here, I designed those, and I also designed these. So in the top left corner, what we have here is going to be for spade bits, and then this one in the middle is for longer. I have some pretty long oversized drill bits that I don't really like jangling loose in there, so I made this tray. So I thought we'd talk about how do we make this tray for two reasons. It's pretty simple little design, but I think it's going to be handy. And it's actually bigger than my print bed, so we have to break it down into pieces to make it work. Let's rotate this thing around so we can use this little arrow here to rotate along the axis. Now, when you're rotating objects in TinkerCAD, if you leave your mouse inside of the inner circle there, it will snap to these kind of standardized divisible angles. If you want to get more precise, you can drag it out further and get finer control. So we're going to rotate this 90 degrees. Now, my print bed, it's a Prusa MK3, so it's about 8.3 by 8.3 inches, roughly. So this won't print on there because it is 18 3/4 inches long and 6.45 wide. So we got to split it up. But before we get there, let's talk about how I made this all to begin with. And we'll adjust our settings back to inches. And we'll make our work area wide enough to fit our box on. So we're going to go up here where it says box. We're going to click on it and drag it into our workspace. So these little white boxes at each vertex, you can click this to adjust the width. Now you can drag them, but that's often pretty inaccurate and time consuming. But if you need to, it's a way to get something a little non-standard. But we need this to be 18 3/4 inches long, 6.45 wide, and 2 inches high, because that is how high the interior of my drawer is, and I want it to clear it. So we've got the basic dimensions of that. How are we going to make the holes? Well, TinkerCAD uses kind of an additive subtractive model for creating this type of thing, and it's probably the case for the others, but I don't know much about them. So what you can do is you can turn any of these shapes into a hole, but they already have some quick access holes up here. And you can also change it here and here in this little box in the top right. So we're going to add, how many holes do we have? 6? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, 6 holes. So we're going to make 6 of these. Now we want to leave some space around the edges for the walls. 1/8 of an inch is probably overkill. That's what I did on mine. I probably could have gotten away with the 1/16 of an inch thickness, but we're going to just kind of stick with that. you can test it out on your own. So we're basically going to make the dimensions of this roughly the same as the box, minus 1/8 of an inch on the top. So we have a space on the bottom of the box for the floor, and then 1/4 inch total along the length, because we want 1/8 of an inch on either side, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So let's change the height to, oh god, we better get the calculator up here. So 2 minus 0.125, we have 1.875. I should know this by now. So we're changing our height to 1.875. We're going to change our width to 18.5. Length, I guess, rather. And then we'll make it about an inch. I don't remember how wide I made them initially. So we're going to line this up with our box. Now, how do you do that? Well, you're going to select both of these objects. So click one, shift click the other, and then up here in the top right corner, you can hit the align button or hit L to open up the alignment menu. And you're going to use these little round dots here to line up the faces. So that lines up that face. We're going to align this with the top. And actually, we're going to center this. And that should give us good space. So we got 1/8 of an inch on the bottom and 1/8 of an inch on either side. But what we want to do is move this inward, so we also have 1/8 of an inch on the outside. Now I've got my snap grid already set to 1/8 of an inch, so I just hit the up arrow one time. Now what we're going to do is Control and D while we have the hole selected to duplicate the hole. And we'll just use our up arrow key to move it. And again, Control D, Control D, Control D, and that gives us our boxes there. As you can see, we got a little bit left over, and that's fine. I'm not going to worry about adjusting those. You'll get the idea without changing that. So then what we're going to do is select all of these. You can drag to select, or you can shift click all of those individually, and again, go up here to our menu on the top right and hit group, or Control G will group those together, and then you see you end up with these voids in your original object. Now I made those little divots in the middle here so that it's easier to reach in and grab the bits by their shaft. And the way I did that was to create a cylinder hole, and I made it, I think it was 4 inches, so 4 inches in diameter. Because our box is 2 inches high, it doesn't really matter. We're going to change the height to about 7, and then what we're going to do is rotate it 90 degrees and drag it over here. We'll shift click to align these by the center. Put them wherever you want. It doesn't have to be that way. And then we'll select this, use our arrow keys to move it over, and then we'll adjust it downward by dragging this little arrow here, and we'll leave a little bit of a lip on the bottom. And then again, shift click both of those, hit group, and you end up with a hole. So that's how we made the initial design. Now we have to split this up. Sure, there's any number of ways to split this up, and you can probably come up with some better ideas than I have. But I'm going to show you how I did it. So we're going to make some copies of these, set them off to the side. This is 18 3/4 of an inch wide total. We're going to split it equally into thirds. So what we're going to do is make a hole, a box hole that is 6.25 inches, which is 1/3 of the length. Adjust our height here to 2 inches. And then we're going to align these, shift clicking both of them, hit the align key, and we'll bring it over here, line up this face, and then we're going to group them together. We end up with that. So we're going to do that again. I should have just duplicated these. 6.25, 6.45. Let's duplicate this before I forget. Yeah, okay. So let's align these to the middle and on this face. And again, we're going to group that together, and we end up with the right side of our piece. Now, if I had gotten these correct, you could just duplicate this and rotate it around, and you would have your left piece as well. So let's set this off to the side. Bring another one of our copies over here. We'll duplicate this one. We'll drag it over here, and we'll actually make this 12.5 inches. Shift click to align, and we will put this up against this face over here. Hit the group button, and now we have our left side, and we just need to get the middle. So let's duplicate that real quick. Do the alignment. Group them together. Repeat that process. Oh, that's not what we wanted. Okay, bring it up here and here. Group them together, and now we have our middle section. So now we have to devise some way to connect these together. And you could probably just glue them together in the real world. That's fine. But what I did was drag one of these little triangles out. We're going to rotate it up 90 degrees. And then I think I made this like an inch tall or long or whatever. Yeah, an inch in that dimension. We probably ought to just go a half inch in this dimension. And then the thickness just needs to, the height just needs to match the thickness of the base of our tray, which is 1/8 of an inch, 0.125. And then we're going to bring this over here, rotate it again, and we'll just kind of line it up by eye here. Make sure we're kind of roughly centered. I guess I better bring this back up into plane, huh? Okay, so that doesn't look centered. Just use the arrow key to center it up there. It looks okay. So Control D to duplicate that. We'll just use our arrow key to drag it over. You can shift and right click to drag your orientation. Control D to duplicate that. And again, we're just going to keep doing this all the way across until we've got these roughly lined up. I don't know if that looks consistent. That 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, okay. Another one. The cool thing about this is the duplication remembers your spacing too. So that should get them relatively evenly spaced. Now we're going to shift click all of these little triangles, these little wedge pieces, and we're going to group those together, and then we're going to duplicate them, drag them out of here, and then we're going to shift click these two parts and group those together so it's all one part. So now we're going to make the negative aspect or the negative side of this dovetail on this other piece. So we'll just kind of line them up, and then we're going to take this, make a duplicate again, and we're going to make this one a hole. And we're going to drag it over here and line it up by side with our others there. So we got those lined up. I'm going to click that, shift click the middle section, and we're going to join those together, and we end up with that. So now we need to do the same process over here on the left side. So we're going to rotate these 180 degrees, bring them over. How deep do we make that? About 3/8. So we're 3/8 deep there, looks like. You know, let's get this roughly lined up in the middle. That should be good. Alright, so let's duplicate that real quick. Drag this one out of the way. And then we'll group these together. And do the same thing. Turn this into a hole. Line these up. Maybe. Why is my snap off? Somehow my snap grid is off. Alright, let's alter this here. Change my snap to 1/16 of an inch. Oh, still not on. 32nd. This is killing me. No, it's not even a 32nd. 64th? Yeah, there we go. Okay, alright. So, we'll drag this over here, line it up by side just like we did earlier. Shift click with the middle, group those together, and now we have 3 pieces that should, theoretically, snap together with these little dovetail designs. You could put some glue in there, some CA glue or whatever, but we'll see how that works out later. I'll do a video when I've got all the parts printed and everything organized the way that I want them to be inside of the drawer, so you can see how this worked out. But I thought I'd show the process there. You know, the other stuff I pretty well downloaded from Thingiverse, so there wasn't a lot of work involved in this. You know, I made these, but that took no time. We just used the same subtractive techniques we just did with these other ones. Same thing with the spade bit holder. The only difference is that it is small enough to fit on the print bed of my printer. It doesn't need separated into pieces. So there you have it, kids. A long drill bit, 3-piece organizer. We'll do some more at some point. You know, I'm kind of just doing these videos as I've got one random project or whatever going on. If there's something specific you want to see, I might be able to execute it. Say it in the comments. Let me know. We'll try it out. Yeah, there you go. Some simple TinkerCAD stuff.